Welcome everybody to Freaky Tales episode 9, the day right before Halloween. So I want to thank everybody who has subscribed, who is tuning in, and those of you that will probably tune in later. Just want to thank you once again for all your likes, comments, and shares. Before we get into our discussion today, I want to share that once again, if you would like to share your stories, anything that might have happened to you, to a family member, to a friend, or just something that might have been passed down to you, once again, you can send it to send us an email at freakytalespodcast@gmail.com. Once again, freakytalespodcast@gmail.com. That should be right above me. And right below me, if you would like to follow us on Instagram, you can follow us on Instagram at Freaky Tales Podcast on Instagram. Once again, you'll see that on the screen, Freaky Tales Podcast on Instagram. And there's something that we would like to offer you right now for a limited time. We have a horror loteria. It's kind of like the Mexican loteria that we all grew up playing, but this one has horror characters, and you should see that on the screen. That is available at documixery.com if you would like to purchase, if you would like to support the podcast. Once again, thank you for tuning in on the night before Halloween. So without further ado, please allow me to introduce my very special guest, and I'd like to thank her from coming all the way from, well, maybe I'll let her tell you, Erica Howe.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
How are you doing today?
Really good.
Yeah?
Yeah, feeling really good.
Okay.
Yeah.
You know, there were some things that I wanted to bring up that when we booked you to come on the podcast, you sent us some pictures, and you left a description of yourself, or should I say titles?
Yes.
Can you share a little bit of those titles?
Yeah, I always felt weird giving myself titles, but I was like, why not just go for it? So I believe I sent witch, occultist, amateur poet, model, psychic medium, weirdo. Okay. Yeah.
Now, when I read those, I didn't think of it as, I know you said weirdo, but I didn't think of it as that. I actually thought of it as interesting, that it'll make an interesting conversation. So for those of us that may not know, and I say this ignorantly, we don't know, I don't know, what exactly is a psychic?
Well, you kind of have two branches. You would have like the intuitive psychic, which I believe most people are. Most people are born with some type of intuition. And then psychic medium kind of takes it a step further. And a psychic medium has all these fine-tuned abilities, whether it's hearing things, seeing things, or dreaming about things before they happen. I'm sure you've had, or if you've experienced that gut feeling, Tony, yeah. I'm sure you have. Yes. That's definitely your intuition. And, more people, I hope in the future more people realize they have this ability. However, moving onwards to psychic medium, they take it a step further by following these innate abilities and being able to see visions of the past, the present, the future, and it kind of goes on deeper to having experiences and gaining messages from the deceased spirits, and multi-dimensional beings. So,
Okay.
yeah.
We'll come back to
Sure.
that because there's some things you said that I would like to touch on. Now, and then you said witch. The reason why I bring that up because, growing up and, Halloween being my favorite holiday, even over Christmas.
Likewise.
And, Thanksgiving. We always thought of witches, candy corn, witch hats, and broomsticks. But obviously that's not what you're referring to.
Yeah, there's more to it than that. I mean, witch hats and broomsticks are still accurate if you want to go back like several hundred years ago.
Okay.
But nowadays, it's becoming, I'm going to say, kind of a popular thing, which is great in its own way. There are witches all over the world, and the aesthetic varies depending where you're from and what your culture practices, when it comes to that type of witchcraft. But I would say, like, in a nutshell, witch is one, male or female, or any gender, uses their abilities and the relationship with their gods, their ancestors or spirits, the forces of nature to create life and to manifest things into their life, to heal, or if you want to curse, you do things like that, creating talismans to enhance life and to literally bring magic forth and knowledge and speaking with spirits and being one with the earth. That's what I feel it all comes down to.
Okay. Now, again, me asking for the public and those that are tuned in, is there such things as good witch and bad witches?
Sure, but I think it's all in the heart of the person. Like earlier, he asked good witch or bad witch. I said neutral, and I resonate with that. I do, because I know in my heart I'm a good person. I don't think I'm a bad person, but in a situation, I'll do what needs to be done.
Wow. Hey, at least you're honest.
Yeah.
You're an honest witch.
Oh, of course, always.
Okay, now, occultist.
Yes.
Now, when we think of occultist, once again, we're thinking Hollywood occultist, We're thinking about hoodies, and pentagrams and worshiping the devil.
Sure.
I don't know. Fill us in, please.
I mean, occultists can do those things, I'm sure, depending what... But, occultists, more so it's the study of the occult.
Okay.
I knew a gentleman who was a professor, but he just taught anthropology, but he called himself an occultist, but he didn't necessarily practice the occult or like witchcraft. But he was just obsessed and put his whole life into studying it. So for me, the occult, I started, before I called myself a witch, I started looking into world practices and stuff, especially when it comes to like conjuring the dead and things like that, and seances. I was super fascinated with that, and I started that journey when I was about 12.
Okay.
So very young. So it made me stand out.
Okay.
Other kids were writing reports on weird things, and I was writing reports on old Gaelic festivals from the 1600s. So
that's pretty interesting.
Yeah.
Now, and you kind of said weirdo, and I guess you kind of, maybe that's why you're referring to that, because of the things you were writing about, and everybody wrote something totally different.
Yeah.
So you always felt, if you will, not necessarily better, but different.
Different, 100%.
Okay.
Always. Always.
Wow. Okay, now, when did you find out, or when did you know or recognize or feel that you had, I don't know what to call them, abilities?
Yeah. I was around 4 years old when I began to realize that not everyone saw what I could see, hear what I could hear, and yeah, that's about it. And then grade school is when it really became obvious, but I kept it to myself. But it was, I would say the first experience is when I was 4 years old. I saw the spirit of a deceased great-grandmother, and I would tell my grandmother, who I lived with at the time, all about her, even though I never met her, what she looked like. I would smell a certain kind of perfume that was obviously absent from my grandmother's life for so long. I remember I would play a lot with her.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. And I just thought it was normal too. And then I went to a Catholic church one time, and I remember seeing beautiful, like, angels. Of course, they took the form of, like, like Catholic angels, you know, with the armor and things like that, because I'm a baptized Catholic, so I feel like that's what the spirits manifested themselves as. But as I saw this beautiful array of wings and gold, I was looking, and no one else was looking at the beauty.
So no one else possibly saw it.
No one else, and that's, I mean, yeah, it was kind of a dark moment. I was like, wow, I'm 4 years old and I'm feeling like a little cynical about like how uncommon this is.
Right. Wow. You know, what's going through my mind is right now, it's I think it's actually pretty amazing.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you why, because in most of my listeners here, every once in a while on my other podcast, I'd share things that I grew up seeing.
Yeah.
And so when I saw your titles, I was like, you know, I really want to know, because I've shared things with people here on this podcast, things that I grew up seeing, and a lot of the things that you're saying, not exactly, but I saw a lot as well.
For sure.
So I was always afraid to share and to open up to anyone because of thinking what people may think of me growing up.
Of course.
You know,
Yeah.
Now I don't care. So everything you're saying to me is pretty interesting. I could confirm that I've seen a lot of the things that you somewhat mentioned, some of it good and some of it bad. I've seen a lot of bad things. Now, would you say that you got to look into the supernatural or the paranormal? Is it safe to say that?
Yeah, of course.
Okay. Now, did you ever witness or experience anything bad?
Yes, I was about 9 years old, maybe 8, where I encountered the first malevolent force.
Okay. For those that may not know what that is, can you kind of explain that?
Malevolent as in negative and not good.
Okay.
Not good. Because before that, I've had positive or just neutral experiences. Like I've seen, cliche, but I've seen fairies.
Okay.
And, you know, like gnome spirits too, and like elemental spirits of nature. So it's neither good nor evil, it's just neutral. And what's kind of depressing, like as a kid, we see a lot of these things and then we repress it because we have fear of judgment and that we're alone in this. And then that begins to, when you repress these abilities, it kind of, you know, they stay dormant for a long time.
Right.
And then once we finally accept that about ourselves, you know, we can, better things can happen. So, but I mean, the negative experiences will come to people who are intuitive of in any way.
When you said it was negative, was it because you felt it, or did he do something negative?
I felt it, I saw it, and yes, I felt it, I saw it, and it confirmed that.
Okay.
It like wanted to harm. So that it was a very yucky spirit.
Okay. And I'm gonna describe something that I saw.
Yeah.
I don't even know how old I was, but I know I was in first grade.
Mm-hmm.
I know that because of the house that we lived in. Our house was so small. My parents had a lot of kids, total of 10 kids.
Wow.
And at that time, I was my younger brother was the baby. But I've had 2 sisters after, so I know they weren't born yet. I was in first grade, and I remember me and my mother, and some of my brothers used to actually sleep in the living room. And one night, I remember that, and I can still see it even now. I'm laying on my back on the floor, my mom's to my right, and my brother's to my left. And I opened up my eyes, and I just see nothing but darkness because all the lights were turned off. I happened to wake up maybe a couple of minutes later again, and there was a man, at least to me, it looked like a man with his mouth open. Why he had his mouth open, I don't know. But here's what he had on. It was almost like he had a graduation suit. He had the cap and gown, and it was all white. So it wasn't like it was dark.
Interesting.
And he had the cap, and he had the gown, and he was standing maybe where this light is at right here.
Yeah.
That's how close. And I saw him, and he saw me. And the whole time, I couldn't move. I didn't know if it was bad or good, but I was scared, so I'm assuming, you know. And I remember I kept nudging my mother because I couldn't talk. So finally she turned around and she said,
Like
"¿Qué
a sleep
pasó?"
paralysis almost?
Well, I was awake.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Yeah. So, and I'm looking at him and I didn't want to turn away thinking it might disappear. So I remember nudging my mother and she finally turned around. She looked at me and she says, "¿Qué traes?" Like, what's wrong? And then I said, "Está un hombre ahí." There's a man right there. And she said, "Where?" And she looked. I think she got scared. So she got up, turned on the light, and it was nothing there anymore. That was the first time that I can say that I have ever experienced any, and I knew I was fully awake.
Yes.
The same way I'm looking at you right now. If I turn around and I told these guys, "Do you see it?" And they say, "What?" That's what it was like.
Yeah.
You know. But so that was the first time, and I was like in first grade that I saw it. And after that, I saw many things after that. And fear of, again, being called a weirdo or somebody crazy.
Yes.
You kind of just tend to keep things to yourself.
For sure.
You know, I've called up people, okay, friends. "What are you doing?" Oh, I'm just eating. And I can guess their food for some reason. "Oh, you're eating McDonald's again?" And I don't know them for eating McDonald's. I just said that, and they tell me, "Yeah." I called up this other friend of mine, and I said, this person said, "Oh, I'm eating. Oh, what are you eating? The Panda Express?" "How did you know?" And I said, "I didn't, but I saw the picture of it. I don't know what that is."
That's intuition, Tony. You're onto it.
I think so.
Yeah, absolutely.
So now, any other paranormal experiences that you would like to share? I know you said that you experienced quite a few things. I know you said you felt it. You ever seen anything as far as where it was either good or bad, and maybe you saw it for a while? Are these things quick? You know.
Well, I'll share the story of like what I saw when I was 8-9 years old.
Okay.
Yeah. Because that's a good one. I saw what looked like a devil, like their cliche devils.
Okay.
And my family just moved into this house in San Diego, and when I moved into my bedroom, it was one of the first nights that we got there. So it was just my mattress and my nightlight. Nothing else was in the room. And my nightlight, it was of a ladybug, so like it was red, so it was dark, but there was like a red hue. And I fell asleep. And I woke up, I was on my side, and I woke up knowing that to not look above me to the corner. My higher voice of my higher self, or my guardians, I had a lot when I was younger, told me don't look. And so they said to keep your eyes closed. So I kept my eyes closed, but I still like wanted to look a little bit. And up in the corner, I saw the profile of a devil, a long chin with a goatee, an open smile, like he was like laughing.
You're like from ear to ear.
Okay. And horns, long eyelashes, very cliche devil, you know? And it definitely scared me. And so I closed my eyes, I said my Hail Marys. And I didn't even identify as Catholic or Christian anymore, but that's what I always went to because that's what I grew up with. And eventually I never fell back asleep fully, but I kept my eyes closed, and then eventually it'd go away. And then eventually it'd go away, I'd fall asleep. And whenever I fell asleep, I dreamt of that devil where I was, this is where it gets scary. I was like trapped in the underworld, and I had to find my way out. And this devil was like taunting me to get back to my room.
Wow.
Yeah. And so every time I wake myself up, the silhouette would be in that same corner. And that happened about 2 to 3 times where I woke up from that dream, and where I just bursted out of my room and I went to my parents' room, and I was like, Mom, the devil's in my room. Yeah. The devil's in my dream. And of course, I'm just a kid, and It's your imagination. But so I slept with them for the night, and I never brought it up ever again, and nor did that ever happen to me ever again. But that was super scary, for sure.
Now, people that practice, well, like I said again, mediums, psychics, occults, do they believe that the devil does exist?
Yeah. Well, when we think of the devil, we associate it with like the word Satan.
Yes.
Or Lucifer or whatever.
Yes.
Kind of depends on what these people practice or believe in. Some people believe this, the devil was just propaganda.
Yeah, made up.
Yeah, like hell, the concept of hell. And some people believe that hell is a place in your mind that you go to. Like, let's say when you pass away, you have all this guilt from all the sinning you've done or all the bad things you've done. You've got to go and confront yourself. Mm-hmm. That could be hell. And, that's where the devil is. It's kind of in the dark place of the psyche. But the devil or Satan as an entity, it it could go both ways. Some people
do and some
do,
don't.
Some people don't. Yeah, for sure.
I met two Satanists. Again, from the outside looking in, I met two Satanists 2 different times that didn't even know each other. And the first guy that I met, he told me he was a Satanist, and he studied the Satanic Bible written by
Anton
LaVey.
Yes, then that's a different type of Satanism. We can get into that later if you want.
Yes, and he told me, unless he had it wrong, but this is what he told me, that he believed that Satan was actually the fallen angel, Lucifer, a person. That's how he described him to me. Mm-hmm. So later on, I met another guy that told me that he was a Satanist, but he believed that Satan was like a force, something like this, I guess.
Yes.
Like a force, that's all. Not necessarily a person, not necessarily a fallen angel or whatnot. From the outside looking in, for some reason, I always thought they were all the same.
Sure.
But...
Right, and apparently there's Satan elitists out there, and they could correct me if I'm wrong, so I wouldn't want to say something incorrectly, but yeah, there's so many sub-branches to the word Satanist. Like Anton LaVey had his own way, where they believe, and then some people see Satan as an actual god, or they do Satan worship, and then some people just see it as a force of liberation.
Okay.
A lot of them are aren't even theistic, so they don't even potentially do rituals. They just believe in, if you think about it, Satan rebelled, Satan went against the grain of society, and he did his own thing. And that's maybe that's the force he was talking about.
Possibly.
They just apply that to their mind and to their life and to their morals.
Yeah, he didn't really elaborate too much. He just told me that he just believed there was a force. One guy said that. I just didn't really want to, get too much into it. I was maybe 28, 30 around the time when I met both of those two guys. Now, let me ask you, do you believe that Satan exists?
I believe, yes, I do.
Okay.
But I also believe that it holds a different energy than the word Lucifer for me.
Okay.
For me, yes.
Okay. I'm going to share something with you that happened to me, I want to say, in 98 or 99. And I shared this story only once before. And when I shared it, I actually changed certain things up simply because, and I want to be careful when I say this, because when this experience happened to me, I was with a friend. And when I shared it, I never asked my friend, do you mind if I share that story that happened to us? So I had to change it up almost like if it wasn't him. I just changed his name.
Yeah, of course.
So when today I called up my buddy and I asked him, hey man, I'm going to share that story that happened to us. And till this day, and that was 98, 99, he still remembers, and it still scares the hell out of him because of what we saw. I've never been one of those guys that is depressed. I'm down and out. Feel like a loser. I have an anxiety attack. I go through depression. And I know there's people out there like that. I'm not mocking that. But for me, I've always been on a natural high type of guy. I've always been up. So one day, I just happened to be going through a real downer. And I called up one of my buddies and I said, hey man, you want to go drink? And I was around 28 at the time. And he said, yeah, come pick me up. Picked him up. We went in a van. Think we had almost a case of beer. And I only drank that back then, maybe 6 or 7. We went to a park. And to this day, even when I go to the park, I still see things there.
Oh, wow.
And this is the first time. Well, let me continue. So we're sitting in the dark. It's probably around 11 o'clock at night. The cops didn't pull up. We were just parked in the park. It was really dark. There was hardly any lights. And we're drinking. He's not drinking. I'm drinking. He might have had maybe one, but I was the one that was like buzzed.
Mm-hmm.
And something from afar, away off, I would say it was darker than the darkness of the trees and the park. It was just darker, and I can tell.
Yeah.
It looked like the shape almost like standing up like a man, but a gorilla. It was husky and big like that. And I kept looking at it, and I would pop open another beer, and I saw it walking almost in slow motion towards us. It got closer and closer and closer and closer. And maybe it's 50 feet away from us now. And
Did your friend see it?
I'm okay. Getting there.
I'm getting excited.
I'm like this because I'm thinking to myself, I'm not going to over panic because he's keeping me company. I'm feeling down. I don't want to scare him. So as it's getting closer, and now it's probably literally about 15 feet away from the van. And I see it just as clear as day. It's darker than the park, and it's more of a mist.
Okay. Yeah.
But it was tall and like a big, like a gorilla, like husky.
Interesting.
Not like a man. But,
yeah.
And this thing must have been maybe about 6'6", and it's walking towards us. And finally, my buddy tells me this, and if you're hearing this, man, I just had to share it. He says, "What are you waiting for, man? Just get out of here. You don't see it?" And I turned around and I go, "Yeah, let me get out of here." He goes, "Hurry up." So I turned the keys. I started. All of a sudden, he hits his window and he yells, "Oh!" He goes, "Get out of here." And he panicked. And I said, "What happened?" I'm backing up and I look at my mirror and I see something run in back of us. And he goes, "He was just right here. He was like this on my window." So we take off.
Oh my gosh.
We're thinking, it stayed there. We drive to his place out in Gardena, nowhere near where we were.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I pull in to his garage, and I remember I backed in so that we can see.
Yeah.
And so nothing behind us can creep on us. So we are literally just trying to calm down, because I was still like this. I couldn't believe it that he saw that. And I asked him, "What did you see?" And he said, "I saw it from way over there." So he saw it exactly the same time that I did.
Probably thinking the same things you were.
Yes.
Like, I'm not going to say anything yet.
Yes.
Yeah.
So what happened was that we started talking about it, and then he asked me, "Do you know how to pray?" And I said, "I think I do." "You want to try?" And he said, "Yeah." And he grabbed my hand, and he wasn't one of these type of guys that would touch me, And he grabbed my hand. And I guess he decided to look while I prayed, and he said he saw the thing walk up. Okay, now I had my head down. I heard the pounding on the window. Boom.
Yeah.
So I look up thinking it's him, and he's terrified and he's yelling. And he said, "Get out of here, get out of here, get out of here." So I turned it back on. I get there and I said, "What happened?" He said, "I saw him walk up when you were praying and he hit the window." I go, "That wasn't you?" And he said, "No." He said, "He hit the window." And he says, "I don't want to go home. I don't want to go home." And I said, "But you are home." He goes, "I don't want to be here." Brought him to my house. As soon as we parked, literally, when it starts raining after, you kind of feel the mist or you feel the sprinkles, and then it comes down. This was immediately, all the rain just came down. And now he's terrified. He doesn't want to get out of the van that we were in. Ultimately, we went into the house, turned on the lights, and we talked. And, my mother was awake, and we shared that with her.
Yeah.
And of course, my mother tried to give us the best interpretation that she could.
Of course.
As far as, that you guys saw a demon of some sort.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what it was. I guess in sharing that, have you ever experienced anything like that, possibly when you're with somebody and they see it as well?
Yes. A couple years ago, I was dating this guy who lived in Massachusetts.
Okay.
And who lived in Salem, Massachusetts.
I was about to say Salem.
Yeah. So when I flew over there, we're like and he's like, let's walk Salem at night in the old cemetery that's like 500 years old. Wow. On a full moon. It was like we left at like 11 p.m. We're like, let's do it. It's big. So we, walked around talking the whole time. I was burning sweetgrass just so to keep the energies neutral and stuff. Yes. And we would sit down there here and there and just feel the energy. It was very mysterious and quaint. But as we got further back to where the older tombs were, we saw this huge 10-foot, maybe it's hard to say, but in the distance, we saw this large statue of Jesus Christ, hands open like that. Yes. And as we walked around the bottom, we would see him at different points of views. But as we got a little further, we swear that we both saw him, the Jesus Christ statue, step off the pedestal and move, but he wasn't walking, he was just gliding.
Wow. And
his arms were still like that, and then he moved or hovered to where we were, and he was hovering towards us. And I was like, if this is Jesus Christ, should I be afraid? But I don't like this. Right. And so we just kept walking, and we're like, okay. And so what he did is he stopped maybe when he was about 45, maybe to 50 feet away. He stopped, and then he turned the other way and went to the other direction. So that was pretty weird. And then we happened to hear the sounds of these like weird cries later that night, but we found out they were just the local swamp cats, but it scared me. Wow. So that was pretty eerie because you're in this old town with so much history. Yeah. And I felt like I was going to see something. Anyway, so I guess that was that. So.
I grew up watching a movie called Salem's Lot. Mm-hmm. And that was the first time that I ever heard Salem. In my late 20s, when I began to not necessarily study, but look into things of the occult. Mm-hmm. Again, I'm still very ignorant when it comes to these things. So I just barely dabbled just to kind of find things out. I don't know if this is true, but let me ask you this because you were there. Is it true that Salem is full, for lack of better words, of witches? Is there a lot of witches in Salem?
I feel so, yeah. There's left and right, you'll see magic shops and spiritual shops where you can get tarot card readings, palm readings. And, I had this thought, and I brought this up to my boyfriend now because I was telling him about that experience in Salem. And I wonder, since a lot of injustice happened back in Salem during the witch trials, they persecuted a lot of innocent people as well. And now since Salem is booming, and they're booming because of tourists, because they want to experience the history of Salem, is this like the revenge of witches? Like, are they getting what they deserve? Like, are they gaining popularity and understanding of who they were, or is the city using the witches as a way to make money? Yeah, if that makes sense.
Right. Okay.
So that just made me think, like, okay. But there are witches. There are like modern day witches, 100%, and it's a good place to be.
Do you ever sense, and I'll just say, for lack of better words, good energy or bad energy when you meet people?
Yes, almost instantly. I could tell if I want to continue talking to this person or not.
Now, most people that listen to this podcast, and it's funny that you say that because I share this with my boy John, I share this with other people, that not all the time, but there are times that I have met people and seen things about them, and I would know immediately if they were good or bad.
Right.
And not saying that the person was bad but things that might have happened to them.
Right, for sure.
I'm going to share this again. On my other podcast, I've had now 106 interviews. There was a person in here, and I'm not going to say who. People, blew me up on my DM, asking me who was it. There was this one individual that came in, and when this person came in, there was a shadow taller than him following him, and I saw it. I was sitting across from him, and when this person walks in, I saw it the whole time, and I didn't feel, if you will, comfortable.
Right.
I'll say that. People always say, is it a him, or is it a her, is it a him or a her? Sometimes I'll say him, sometimes I say her, because I want to throw them off, because I'll never tell you who it is. So
Yeah.
that's what I say.
For sure.
Because I'm not going to disrespect this person.
No, of course.
But
Yeah, I feel you.
when this person walked in, there was that shadow that followed him the whole time. And I'm thinking to myself, okay, I'm sober, I haven't been drinking, I see it, and it's like if I could look at you and I see this thing right in back of him.
No, has anyone else seen it?
No.
No, just you.
No. And that was the only time here out of all those shows, that I saw that. And it was almost like a silhouette. That's all it is.
Yeah.
It's all it is. But I didn't feel comfortable, and I kind of wanted to just to hurry up and
Yes.
So I see things like that. I've shooken people's hands.
Oh.
And for an example, I was with a friend, and he said, I'm going to introduce you to my boss. My boss is here.
Yeah.
We were at a supermarket, and I shook her hand, and I saw things like instantly,
Oh, wow.
and it tripped me out.
For sure. Yeah.
So he goes, is everything cool? And I was like, yeah, just
You just need a second.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
I feel you. Been there.
he tells me, man, you know what? I can't stand her. But that's not the way he introduced me to her. He just said, this is my boss. I want to introduce you to my boss. And I said, okay, cool. Hey, so-and-so, this is so-and-so, how you doing? Pleasure to meet you. And when I saw her, I can tell that I just looked at her differently. And I just let her hand go, and I kept walking. So I said, why can't you stand there? Oh, she's always so mean. And I immediately knew why she was so mean. And I told him, I'm going to tell you what I saw, and you're going to think I'm crazy, because I never opened myself up to him.
Yeah.
And I shared what I saw, and he said, man, you hit it right in the head. It's true. He goes, everybody knows. And I said, really? And I go, I didn't know her, and I saw it. And I'll share with you later what I saw.
Yeah, no worries.
So, but yeah, he said that she was really, really, really mean, and that, nobody liked her.
Yeah.
So, and I said, I know what it is, and when I told him, that everything was confirmed that it was true,
Yeah.
But you said earlier that, I'm not saying if you said this about yourself, but there are certain people that can talk to the deceased.
Yes.
And let me ask you this, have you?
Yes.
Okay. Do you mind
Sure.
sharing an experience?
No, I would love to, actually, because I don't talk about this often. So one reading that I did, I would say about a year ago, I did for a client who wanted me to help contact her deceased father, who had passed away, I think, in 2015, around Christmas time. I think this was last year around Christmas time, why she wanted to get this reading. And this is a more positive one, and this is a story I just hold fondly to my heart. But immediately, so I was on the phone with her, and I had my notebook, and I was just scribbling away, because when I scribble that, I let my mind trickles away, and then that's where I can get the downloads and the information I need. So scribbling away, and she told me her father's name and where they lived and things like that, and I started providing the information of what he was like, a very funny man, very positive, and my chest hurt, and I could feel it was in my arm hurts, and she's like, yeah, he died of a heart attack, things like that, and I was like, he loves this time of the year, because I could feel and I see him laughing, almost like Santa Clausy, and he loves Santa Claus, something about being big and jolly, and he loves children. And she was like, well, he was a Santa Claus actor at the mall.
Okay.
And she showed me a picture of him. He was this sweet old looking gentleman with a big beard, very jolly smile, very sweet. And what was rewarding about that was because he did pass away, very unexpectedly, and he was very close to his daughter. She was his only daughter, and So she just wanted closure on because she lived on the other side of the country at the time.
Yes.
And she just wished she was there when he said his last words, and things didn't work out like that. So this was very nice, and it felt good to kind of bring her and her father together, and it felt like I wanted to know him too. And he was very welcoming, and so you get situations like that where he's been waiting for someone to translate his message to his loved ones.
Okay.
Because our loved ones, when they pass away, they can try to interact with us. Like they might make the lights go off, or we have dreams about them. But if you have a medium who can help translate and relay these messages, it can really be a beautiful experience.
Now let me ask you this, because again, I don't know. For an example, like you were getting these downloads, like you said, okay? And if she were to ask you, where is he at? Do you think you could have provided that information?
Well, yeah. Well, we kind of touched upon something like that, because people think of, heaven or, whatever, hell. But he passed on, or he moved on into the afterlife. And I shared with her his process after he passed away. Not all of them know right away that they've passed.
Right.
So they may linger in what's called limbo, or the patient's room is what I like to call it too.
Okay.
Where they're still figuring out that they've passed away. And so that's why the spirits we see here, like if they're human, it's mostly because they haven't transcended up into the afterlife. And that can mean many things. Once you get to the afterlife, that could go in any direction.
Okay. Have you ever had any negative experiences reading to someone?
Yeah, I've done like a house analysis before, where there was like a haunting.
Okay.
Yeah, this was in Las Vegas. I think I did this the summer of 2017. I went to Las Vegas to a friend's house. I met up with another friend there who was a shaman, and he was going to take care of like the blessings. I just had to go and identify where the attachments were in the home. Uh-huh. And my friend, his younger sister, who was 15, used to be played soccer, super popular in school, but over one summer she started to change, where she started like to cut herself, and just her whole behavior started to really severely change. Oh. And that's where she would wake up with scratches on her body, and so everything kind of led into the direction of like a demonic possession. Okay. So when we went to this house, we walked in. It felt like I was walking into like a big bowl of soup, and I had to go find out where exactly these things were, but like just so much energy going on. I remember my chest was tight, and I was like, ooh, okay, let's go. And I was sweating the whole time, and right there, you have to hide your fear. And I like left mine at the door, because I'm here to help these people.
Right.
But still, like, I'm human, and you get taunted a little bit too. But as you get closer to the point, and I think it was near her door, and the corner of the ceiling above her door was where it was. And so I told the shaman, I was like, I led him, I'm like, you should do the blessings here. Of course, he did his own thing. But so it took about 4 rounds of that for house exorcisms and the exorcism of that young girl for it to finally help. I was only present for the first 2. But after I left, I went to the hotel in Vegas for the night. I did have those things follow me, but they left after I did my thing to banish them. But I was in the shower. I was home at like 4 a.m., super exhausted, by myself in this cheap-ish hotel, and I had a flight the next morning like 10 a.m. I was taking a shower, then the lights turned off, and I was like, okay, this is how it's gonna be. Yes. I was like, I know what's happening. Like, this is not my first rodeo, but I did not want to deal with it because I was like tired. I'm hungry, and I went out and I turned on the light, and I went into the hotel room, because I was like, why is my TV on? And it was off, and the TV was on, and it was on a channel, some like AMC movie where they were, I don't even remember the movie, but when I went out, whatever show was on, it was saying something like, you have to believe that I'm here. I'm here for you or something. So it was just something eerie and very coincidental. And it followed me until I went home, and then it started to make itself present in my waking hours. When I would drive home, like I would see the face of it in my rearview mirror or on a freeway, and I would see the entity standing. I would just pass by at 70 miles an hour. I knew it was that thing.
Wow.
Yeah. So it, yeah.
So now, when you went to Vegas for this home, did they call you and did they tell you something like, we think it's haunted, can you come? Or like how do they contact you, or what is it that they tell you?
So I had this family reach out to me, and they inquired, saying exactly like, they told me the story about their young daughter who had a totally 180 personality change, and some other occurrences that were going on in the house, and how things have drastically changed, along with some photos that they shared with me of like before and afters of like the scratch marks and the things that were left outside the house. And even they did send some recordings too. And I was like, wow, okay, perfect. Like I'm gonna help you. Like, let's figure this out. And I had a friend in Vegas too, a shaman who does amazing house blessings and stuff like that. And he met up with me there, and he did a wonderful job clearing those things out. And that was my second time doing that. I haven't really done much lately, but it's a lot of work. It is.
You know, if you know, for an example, you said that this young girl was possibly, I don't want to put words in your mouth, demonically possessed?
Yes. Okay. Yeah, for sure.
How does a person, you know, if you know, how does a person open themselves up to become demonically possessed?
Fear. Fear is the best.
The best open door, if you will?
For sure. You know, and we see this through propaganda, through religious, political propaganda. Fear is the best enforcer ever. And when we're, you know, and this family, they were, you know, devout Christians. And, you know, the last thing that they thought, I'm sure, was like something like that would happen.
Yeah.
And so fear is the ultimate gateway to demonic possessions. That's my opinion.
Okay.
Yeah.
And was this girl, I guess you said they performed an exorcism. I don't know. Were you there for that or no?
I was. For the first one. Not for the others, but just for the first one.
What is something like that like? Not that I'm trying to...
No, it's okay. I kind of relive it sometimes too, because it made me realize like, wow, I'm really human and I'm really seeing this.
Yeah.
I didn't know what to expect, if it would be like the movies, like thrashing and stuff like that. But you hear laughing, like her mouth's open. This is what I was like, whoa. Her mouth was open, but you could hear what sounded like 4 voices coming out of it in like cackles.
Wow.
And bodies moving and like contorting, and as if she was in the circus. So.
Wow.
Yeah, sweet girl, and I'm glad she's better. But like, yeah, so pretty crazy, pretty crazy. And I went home. I was like, prayed to the universe, like, thank you for this opportunity, and glad I'm well and my loved ones are well, because that was, and what was sad too, you could see there how her mother's like all crying, and while they had the shaman and the priest there doing their thing, and. Okay. You know, seeing your child like that, I'm sure it's freaky. So
yeah. You know what? One of the things that I saw, again, a lot of this stuff for me, when I saw it like in person, was usually like in the 90s, when I pretty much hung out on the streets a lot.
Yeah.
And I remember I would be like sitting right here, standing outside. We would always be drinking, but I could still see you, even though I'm looking straight ahead. I could still see you. And I saw a person standing right here, and I never looked because I knew there was no one there. We were all over here, and I was the one at the end. And I'm sitting there, and I'm just drinking. And even though I'm still looking forward, I can still see you right now. When I turned around to finally look, whatever this shadow was that was standing there looking like a maybe 6 foot tall man, it got on all 4s and took off.
Oh shoot, okay.
But it was just a shadow, like again, like I said, like a silhouette. And that really scared the hell out of me. Because,
Interesting.
Because I saw a lot of these things. Again, I never shared them with these guys because you know what? You're a weirdo. You're seeing things, and I always kept them the person.
Or you're a liar.
Yeah, pretty much. The person that I always shared this with was my mother. My mother passed away. She's no longer with us. May she rest in peace. But she is the one that knew everything that I would see and go through. And, but again, I don't know if it was good or bad. There was sometimes it felt like it wasn't,
Certainly not positive.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
So, well, I know you shared about you're on the freeway going 70 miles per hour and you see those things. Do you still see things like that today?
Yes. And when I first got my license, I got it later than most kids.
Okay.
A lot of my friends were getting them at like 16, 17. I waited till I was about 18, and because I was scared of what if I see something,
Okay.
and that, and it was more so about that, not necessarily a flat tire, it's, so I still see things like that. I handle it like a lot better now, a lot better. But it still throws you off, especially if you're going down a dark, windy road and if it's in the middle of the road.
Wow.
Like, that's weird.
Now, what do you think? What do you think those are? Or are they people?
Or they're transient spirits, which means they're just doing their own thing, kind of like they're not all there. I've had a spirit walk into my room, not look at me, just like walk in, out, never saw it again. They had no idea what they're doing. They're just kind of like do 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 do, as they almost lose the human intelligence. I'm not saying like spirits aren't intelligence, but they lose memory, their human memory, so they have no idea how to get out of there. And that can go away when you pass away. After you pass away, if you forget, if you had any unfinished business, to fulfill, or if you have no plan on how you want to ascend and where you want to go to get out of this plane, it could be like that.
So, I know you touched on it, but just to ask the question, so you do believe in the afterlife?
Yes.
Okay.
I do.
And wherever people go, obviously, do they ever get to come back like a reincarnation thing, or?
I believe in reincarnation. I do, because in life like I'm sure you heard of karma.
Yes.
And if it's our karma to do these things, or we fall off our karma, we'll make bad decisions, and we have to learn from these decisions and these life lessons. And whatever karma we racked up in this life, let's say we pass away, we go over this spreadsheet with God or whoever, our guides, our higher self, think like, oh, we did this and this. Did you learn this lesson that your soul was supposed to learn? No, beep, reincarnate. So that's what I feel happens.
Okay.
And thus we return to do it better.
Yeah.
But we forget. But some people don't forget. Like I'm sure some people talk about having past life memories, or like deja vu even.
Yes.
So yeah.
I have a lot of those.
Of course.
One of my last questions before we go take a little intermission break. This might sound dumb, but I have a point to why I'm asking. Is there such thing as somebody possibly, I don't know what the title is, whether it's a medium, a psychic, a witch, that they're in love or in lust with the power possibly that they have, that they actually almost use it to their advantage as to do harm or wrong? Let me clarify that, because I met this one person that claimed that he was a witch, he was a man. And he told me, you want anybody taken care of, you let me know. And I knew that he was in love with whatever power he had.
Sure.
Is it possible that you can, if you will, can get drunk with that power or that authority that you have?
Oh, absolutely, for sure.
Okay.
Yeah, you abuse that power, and which is a shame, because they're given to a person because the force who gave it to them believed that they could handle it, and maybe they could, but this is where like human nature comes in, where we become overzealous and think that we can do more with it and that we're better. And that's a very human condition that tends to possess the spiritual powers. Like, we think we can be possessed with spiritual powers, but I think our human greed can possess us with, and can possess and taint those powers and abuse them, and the power can, definitely get someone drunk.
Okay. We're going to go ahead and start right there, and we'll come back. We're going to take a 5-minute break.
Cool.
So once again, everyone, thank you very much for tuning in. Make sure you let somebody know that we're live. And if you could share this page, let them know to tune in. We're going to take a 5-minute intermission break, and we'll be back. We're going to cover another topic. And once again, if you would like to purchase the Horror Loteria, go to documixtory.com. You could purchase it there if you would like to help out the podcast. Also, once again, we're going to come back and we're going to read the letters that you guys have been emailing us. So we'll make sure to get to that. So be back in 5 minutes, 5-minute intermission break. Take us away. Welcome back, everyone, to Freaky Tales podcast on this Friday night, right before Halloween. By the way, if you didn't know, well, now you know Halloween is still my favorite holiday. So thank everybody for tuning in, and we will get you your letters today that you emailed us. So once again, but if you still want to continue to send your emails, send them to freakytalespodcast@gmail.com, freakytalespodcast@gmail.com, and you can I would like for you to share with us, so that you can be a part of this show. If you want to be named anonymous, then that's fine. If you want your name to be read, that's fine too. But just at least let us know that, so we don't read your name out by accident. Other than that, once again, email us there, or you can follow us on Instagram, Freaky Tales Podcast on Instagram, Freaky Tales Podcast on Instagram. So without further ado, we're going to jump right back into it with Erica Howell. Thank you. Honestly, it means a lot for you to be here.
Yeah, my pleasure. Glad I came.
Yes. Let me give a quick shout out to Rick Creeper.
Yes.
For the connection.
Yes, of course. Love you, Rick.
So thank you. But now, we were talking about paranormal things, and here's the funny part. Something just happened to me when we took our little intermission break.
Oh, what?
I walk outside and I see two shadows. Okay. Now, it's been a while since I've seen anything like that. When I say a while, maybe like at the beginning of the month or so. The beginning of this year. When that person came in here and I saw that. So I thought it was kind of weird.
Do you think parts of his energy has lingered?
No, because this looked different.
Okay.
This looked different. His was, I say his or hers, I'm going to throw everybody off because I'm not going to tell you who it was the shape of a man. These were small ones.
Interesting.
Yeah, were real small ones. I've seen them different shapes and sizes. I remember going down Hollywood Boulevard, and I saw one almost like if a man was giving him a piggyback ride. It was just hugged up on him. And I just kept looking.
Yeah. And
I told my brother, do you see it? And he said, what? I said, see that man right there with the suit and the briefcase? And he goes, yeah. Do you see anything? No. And he couldn't see it, but I saw it. So I don't know. You know what? I always thought I was somewhat weird as well, but I've always managed to stay quiet. I didn't want to dig into it.
Yeah, of course.
I didn't, because I don't want to see things, believe it or not, that are going to scare me or may cause me to go deeper into it, and I don't want that.
Oh, you don't want to go deep?
No.
I've gotten a little crazy by going deep before.
Really?
Yeah, like with numerology, and just like occult studies for a while. Yeah, I was like not eating. I was just wanting to read. Give me all the answers.
Yeah. You ever play with a Ouija board?
Yes. It's not something to be feared about if it's done correctly, safely.
Okay.
It just gets a bad rap because of movies and irresponsibility, but I think it's a wonderful tool.
Really? Mm-hmm. Now, when you ask it questions, now when you played with it, or you, I don't want to say the word play. What is the correct word, I guess? When
you use it.
When you used it.
Yeah.
Did it actually move?
Yeah.
Now, all the time for you?
All the time. When I was 13, I would have sleepovers, and I would bring girls in so that they could experience the Ouija board. So I would have Ouija board sleepovers. Now,
here's a question that I would like to ask you. Who do you think it is or was on the other side answering?
Well, it's good to ask who they are first once it starts to move. And then it'll spell out Captain Howdy, whatever, or, whatever they want to say. And then that's how you would address them. But it kind of, what makes or break your experience is in the beginning, before you start, you say your incantation, saying that only spirits of good intention may come through, and those who do not, who have ill intentions will be casted away from this session, or something like that. Yeah. I don't want to say a real one because I don't want to make the lights flicker on and off here, but it's basically, I call it how you open the windows and how you board them after will make your experience pleasant and safe and positive.
Okay.
Yeah.
I've always been afraid, again, because growing up from the outside looking in, we used to always, it's of the devil, it's evil.
For sure.
Etc. But since we're touching on that, as far as me talking about it again, growing up thinking it's of the devil and stuff like that. Earlier, we mentioned about Satanists as far as Anton LaVey and his book.
Yes.
And then how others believe that it's a force. And I know you said we could touch a little bit on that if you like. This may sound dumb, but I don't know, so I'm asking, is there such thing as good Satanists or bad Satanists?
I've met a Satanist who was so nice, absolutely nice. I think it just really comes down to, and anyone doesn't need to be a Satanist to be a bad person, but what I define as a bad person, who someone's moral code is ugly, you know, and if they have a poor moral code, then I think that's what makes a bad person a bad person. You know, some people may call Satanists more selfish, but they may just say that they put themselves first, and they may have a different view of them not being selfish. They just put themselves first.
Because I know that Anton LaVey was ordained by Aleister Crowley. Did you ever read any of their work?
Yeah, I love Aleister Crowley.
Really?
I really do. Yes. When I went into a deep rabbit hole, it was with Thelema, the practice that he kind of invented.
Okay.
I don't call myself like a Crowley follower 100%, but since he was a part of my journey, I still like resonate with a lot of the books I've read. You know, I'll go back to, like, philosophically, I'll go back to some of the things that I've read in the book. But, you know, Aleister Crowley, he titled more it as the Beast, you know?
Okay, yes.
Yeah, and, you know, the Beast. And I think Anton LaVey kind of did more harm than good. And he created the Satanic Panic. And, you know, and that's really where I think most Satanists began to get a negative reputation.
Yes.
Because he dated, what was James Manfield, the beautiful blonde bombshell. She was one of the altar babes.
Yeah.
And they dated. They had a relationship, and when she got into that car accident, a really bad one, it was because apparently Anton LaVey she tried to break up with him, and he got jealous over something because she was leaving him for someone else. And then she coincidentally died in that car accident.
Do you think it was a coincidence?
I don't believe in coincidences.
Neither do I. Neither do I.
Yeah.
So,
but I'll use that word lightly though.
Right. What was it about Aleister Crowley, whom by most people, you know, and like I said, I don't know, but I'm just throwing it out there because this is what is out there on the internet. By most people, he was the Black Pope, big time Satanist. Like, you know, what was it about his work or about him that intrigued you?
I loved how far he went for his rituals. He went to the pyramids to, you know, to invoke all the Egyptian deities and such like that. And he went to the house in Scotland in I can't think of it right now, but eventually Jimmy Page from Led Zeppelin lived there.
Yes.
Yeah, and they wrote Stairway to Heaven, and he had some weird experiences there because that's where Aleister Crowley did a lot of his rituals there. So what I appreciate is just how far he went. I will say he did go kind of crazy. I do see it. But I think any adept of the craft of the occult can go in that direction because you have all this power. And I love the power that Aleister Crowley made for himself, for his brand, of his magic, his followers. That's super amazing. It's admirable. But it also shows that with great power, if you can't handle it, it could
possibly destroy you.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I saw a movie of his, but I don't know how accurate it is. It's just a movie. I think it was called Aleister Crowley. And I saw it, and they made him look like that guy was he was insane.
For sure. Well, I feel like he was insane. I haven't seen that movie. I know what you're talking about, though.
Okay.
So I should check it out.
Yeah, because they made him look like he'd get up and pee on this table while you're sitting, like, it was weird the way they made him look. Like,
for sure, because he was super into like using urine and feces and
really
semen, and you know, I'm not judging, but he, you know, intercourse with men and with women at the same time, which is fine. Like, I'm not judging, but like he definitely took it to a new level. And back then it was in the 40s.
Yes.
That's like, what?
Yeah, yeah.
Or in the future, like people are doing that now, like
Yeah.
it's normal. But back then that was out of its world and definitely ahead of its time in a weird way.
No, it was. And I even saw, and I think it was a documentary or a video on Marilyn Manson, because if I'm correct, Aleister Crowley ordained Anton LaVey ordained Marilyn Manson.
Correct.
Are you a Marilyn Manson fan?
I am. Yeah, I dig his music. Yeah.
Now, is he the same type of, well, I don't even know what I'd even call him a Satanist, but is he the same kind of Satanist as Anton LaVey was?
I would love, honestly, I don't know if I can answer that, but I would say maybe, but I feel like he put his own twist to it. I would love to honestly just sit down and have a conversation with him and just see, because I would love to pick his brain.
Okay.
Because that's kind of what I would ask him, because I feel like you see, like when I look at him, close my eyes, I could feel like the Anton LaVey influence and how it's influenced his music during that time too, and his tattoos and stuff like that. But I feel like there's more to him now that he gained on his own, within his own path spiritually. And I feel like he's incorporated what he learned maybe from LaVey and Satanism into whatever he does now. So
Okay.
yeah.
Is there, okay, like, again, is there any practices out there that you tend to stay away from? Like, I won't touch or miss it?
Out of cultural respect, I wouldn't necessarily get into like voodoo.
Okay.
I respect it. It's super fascinating. But like culturally, I do respect it, and it belongs, for me, I see it as it belongs to the practitioners of voodoo, which is, people of Haitian culture, Afro-Caribbean culture. And people can call it dark in its own way. However, I wouldn't say the devil exists in voodoo. It's like not black or white, it just is. But so it's super fascinating, but I would stay away from it, not because I'm afraid of it, but just for cultural respect. But if you want to talk about it like that, I guess, I don't know if I would call it black magic, because the way I define black and white is a little different, but I draw the line when it comes to like human sacrifices. If the human's on the table, I'll be like, thank you very much, I have to go.
Right.
So that's where I draw the line.
now, let me ask you, when pertaining to human sacrifice, because many times that's always associated with Satanism.
Sure.
Again, from the outside looking in.
Right. People assume it's a satanic practice, where it's not always. It's human sacrifices has been happening, like the Mayans used to do it all the time.
Yes.
Just pagan religion as a whole. But when the Abrahamic religions began to take over in the Crusades, they just deemed any sort of paganism as devil worship, just because it was the easiest thing to label.
Okay. Maybe I shouldn't ask this question, but you don't have to answer it.
Sure, go for it.
Does human sacrifice still happen today?
I believe so.
Yeah?
I believe so, yeah.
Wow. I got invited maybe early 2000s to, I won't say where, but it's close to here. And they asked me, several people asked me, you want to go to this meeting? They wouldn't tell me what it was. One guy kind of hinted around, and he said this. He said, do you believe the devil exists? And I said, well, I don't believe in him, but I believe he exists, And he said, well, it's one of those things, if you want to come. So I didn't bother asking, but it's not too far from here, and we're just...
Did you go?
No, I did not.
Okay.
I did not go. And when I found out later, out of asking around, like asking people like yourself that possibly, live in this area, and they told me, yeah, out there where he invited you, there's a... he didn't use the word, I'm trying to remember the word he used, but he said there's a nice population of those kind of people there. And they always get together, certain times of the year. And because I remember I said, maybe I'll go with you, one day or whatnot. And I just kind of just said it. He goes, we only do that every so often. So I don't know what I was getting into. And I'm not going to go somewhere where I can't leave and I don't know what I'm getting into, There's just some things that I just won't dabble in because I don't know nothing about it.
For sure.
You know.
And maybe like you knew not to go for a reason, and maybe you would have saw something that you wish you hadn't. Whatever that means.
Yeah. When is the last time, if you can remember,
Yes.
you met someone or you shook their hand or you talked to them or maybe a phone conversation and you saw something?
My friend and I talked about this before. Okay. It happens a lot, but I'll share a memory where I had a very like profound experience meeting this person. When I was younger, I was in and out of some outpatient therapies because I was a crazy child. So it was like a outpatient rehab and stuff like that. So there was girls my age. They were in there because, they were getting in trouble. But I remember sitting with her. We were just talking. It was like my first day. She's been in the program for a couple weeks. We were just getting to know each other. We didn't shake hands or anything, but we just kept talking. And when you get comfortable with someone, and I've noticed people tend to share a lot with me. And that's fine. I hold space for that. But as she was talking about average stuff, I started to see like visions of her past memories.
Okay.
Yeah, and some were pretty sad, and it made me like see her in a different. I felt a lot of empathy, and I from there on I reached out heavier to be her friend, but and that was just within the first 10 minutes of us sitting down drinking Coca-Cola and talking. But she was just talking to the other kid across, and I was just looking at her the whole time, and just got, of course, those downloads of their memories and things like that.
It's funny that when you use the word downloads because whenever I take notes, I take mental notes. I don't ever write anything down. When I study something and maybe somebody tells me, can you share with me? I'll just go over like my mental notes, but I always refer to them as I read it, I download it.
Yeah, for sure. That's literally what it feels like. A download.
Many times when I'm talking to a person, I'll usually close my eyes because I see what I'm telling you.
Yes, of course.
Yeah, so
I do that too.
Yeah, so that's kind of weird right there. But people have always said, why do you close your eyes? And I said, because I'm seeing it.
Yeah.
So you have to close your eyes to see it. And it's weird to think that, but it's true. Like,
absolutely. I'll do the same thing.
Yeah, that's kind of weird. Shoot, maybe I'm a medium. I don't know.
Right? Maybe you are.
No, I'm just a podcaster. But now, I know we were going to touch a little bit on demons and angels, and you referred to earlier that you've seen angels. From what you can remember, you ever see demons?
Yes.
Okay. You shared one. Earlier. It was the corner.
Yes, that was more of like a devil.
Okay.
I'm not sure if it was a demon. If it was more of the minion demons that are just there to cause havoc.
Okay.
Of course, but if you want to talk about like higher ranked demons, yes. Right now with the magic I practice, I do work with spirits classified as demons, but maybe that's for a different discussion. But so the first time I did any invocation or evocation too, you are in the presence of whatever it is that you're trying to summon to you, and these have always been positive for me. Okay. Since after this I studied my practice before I actually did the invocations, and I felt comfortable doing what I was doing. However, the first time I encountered a demon was very negative. I was 14 years old, and it tormented me from, I wouldn't say 7th grade to the end of 8th grade. So almost 2 years.
Really?
Yeah, almost 2 years. And it happened after I was reading some of these books about like these paranormal investigators, and they were going to a house, and one of the in the books, one of the young boys, he was just writing like what he saw and everything like that. I can't remember correctly even like what book it was, but one of the pages really like made me scared. And then for like a couple weeks I was having these really, really bad dreams about a spirit laughing at me. Like all I could hear was just laughter, like teasing me.
Yeah.
I was like, okay, I'm gonna lay off the books, because at first I was like, is it me? Like, am I like influencing my inner psyche with what I'm reading?
Yeah.
Or is there more to it because I'm cursed? Because back then I believed I was cursed.
Okay.
And when I was about 13, 14, I would sneak out at like 10 p.m. and go to the park down the street just to be alone. I'd smoke cigarettes and just be weird, be, teen angst and be by myself. And there I saw across the park was a humanoid figure, but with a hood.
Okay.
And in my head, I knew, I was like, this is the one that keeps laughing at me. And in my head, I'm like, I was actually really proud of myself. When you feel the fear coming, it feels like a pool of hotness. And before it overtakes the body, I tell people this, like, try to stop it before it overcomes your body. Like, you get hot. So I felt myself getting hot, and then I shook it off. And in my head, I confronted what I was seeing. I was like, who are you and what are you? I didn't get no answers, but I had a staring contest with that thing for about the next 25 minutes before I walked back home. And it didn't follow me home. So I was like, okay, whatever. Shy of a week later, I went back to the park, 10 p.m. to do the same thing. And I saw it again, but it did follow me home, because whenever I would go through the back door, because no one would hear me coming back in through the side, I saw it on the driveway near my father's truck, and I was like, okay. And I went upstairs, I locked my room, lit my incense and my candles and stuff, and there was a prayer that I did that with a goddess I worked with at that time for protection and things like that. And then for about a month, that was fine. But one day in class, I got distracted a lot in class or in school because I would see things and hear things, and I even got held back in the first grade because I wasn't paying attention, but I was just always distracted.
Right. There's something that you said that I felt. This thing was laughing at me. Mm-hmm. Now let me ask you this. If you could interpret that or give me a reason, why do you think this demon was laughing at you?
To show they were taunting me, oh, look at you, you're a little girl.
Okay.
And
you're nothing possibly,
Yeah.
Okay. Reason why I say that is because now, I'm not going to say that this has happened to me while I've been awake. There's a word for it where you're asleep, but you're awake. It's
Sleep
almost
paralysis? And then you can't move, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. That happens to me a lot. And it's always laughing.
Oh, for sure.
And I didn't know what that was.
Those are jesters. You know the jesters in the kingdoms that do silly things for the king. Those are jesters. They're little fuckers. they bug you, for sure. I've had a few jesters before.
Really? And the thing is that I never see them. But I hear them all the time. And it's always mocking, like a mocking laugh, like they're laughing at you for, if you did something and they know, and
yes, like a tease,
yes,
I know,
yes,
yeah.
And it's weird but that's happened to me a lot, and I don't share this, I know my kids, my two boys, and I shared this before, but I'm going to share this with you. We were in Oxnard at a cheap hotel because they got our reservations wrong where we were going to stay at. So they had no more room. So they found us a room at some old trucker stop is what it looked like. And both of them woke up. I was awake with my eyes open, but there was something on top of me covering my mouth and covering my chest, or holding me down. And I couldn't move. And they heard me pretty much,
yeah.
And they turned on the light, and then that's when it stopped.
Of course.
And I remember I had told them, I said, you know what? I don't know what you guys are going to do. I said, but I was just attacked right now, whatever it was. But I saw this coming. I was laying in my bed in the dark, and this was white.
Okay.
And it just hopped. As soon as I'm looking up, but as soon as I look down on my feet, I'm laying on my back. Then I saw it coming. It jumped on top of me. that was probably the only time that I've ever had anything touch me while I was pretty much awake.
Yeah.
I've seen things while I was awake, but to literally touch me. Now, the sleep paralysis, I've had it where I know I'm asleep, but also awake. You're somewhere in the middle and you can't move. But this one, I was wide awake. So
Yeah.
that was about the only time that I've ever experienced
Yeah,
that.
that's no fun.
Yeah.
I had that for a while, I think, when I was like 15 to 17.
And you were awake.
I was awake, yeah, and then you eventually find a way to wrestle with whatever's on top of you
Right.
and break it, but luckily I haven't had that since. So
Okay, I'm glad you tell me that you witness and you share and you see these things. You're sharing that you see these things, because I'm going to tell you something that happened to me that was very, very odd. That was very, very odd. There was a certain time in my life that I was hanging around with dudes that they weren't involved in like the occult or anything like that. But I knew as a man I should not be hanging around with those guys.
right.
Because they were just, I knew they were up to no good.
Yeah.
But I kind of saw them and like, but these are my homies.
Yeah, of course.
Okay. And I hung around with them for several months on a day to day. And my mother pointed it out to me that you're changing. Estás cambiando, Antonio. And you're changing, Antonio. And I was like, so what? And I was somewhat rebellious. My attitude changed. And she says, you know what? I said, you need to change back who you were, because you're a humble man. You have a really great heart. She goes, and I don't see that no more. And honestly, my attitude was that of rebellion. I was like, whatever. So I went home and I started thinking about it, because at the time I was just in my room by myself and I was started to drink. And I never drank like because I was depressed. I just drank because I just wanted to.
Yeah.
So I felt at that point in my life, I think I was like 33, somewhere around there. I felt really, really down. And I started to think to myself, maybe it is who I'm hanging around with.
For sure. For sure.
So out of the blue, I had a friend that calls me, and here's what he tells me. Hey man, I'm going to a Bible study tonight. You want to go? That's what he said, okay? But that's not what surprised me. I'm going to tell you what shocked me. And I said, what are we going to do there? And he just said, I don't know. He said, the pastor, teaches out of the Bible and we just listen. And I said, all right, come pick me up. That's all I just said. In my mind, I'm saying, I'm doing this for my mother because of what she told me really hurt me.
Yeah, of course.
So I said, maybe this is a positive step. So I get in there. This was a bold black pastor. And I have to say that because I know who he is. He knows who I am. And I never know if one day he's ever watching this. So, there must have been maybe about 100 people there. I sat somewhere in the middle, mixed in with everybody. Sat in the middle. My friend was kind of like off to the side a little bit. And I'm bored. Like, I'm bored. They're clapping, they're worshiping, they got their hands up and everything. And the pastor is sitting there with his eyes closed, relaxed, like almost like if he was in a lawn chair with a fan. He was just fanning himself because it was kind of hot in the church. And I'm looking at him. And here's what I said. In my mind, I said, this guy's fake.
Yeah.
I said, this guy's doing it for the money.
Yeah.
He's greedy. All of these negative things started coming out of my mouth. That guy's fake. And I lie to you not. He goes like this. And he looks at me. So he stands up and he tells the choir, stop. So he calls out my friend, because that's his home church. And he said this, who is your friend right here? He stopped the whole service. And I'm looking at him. And here's what he said. He said, I just brought him his first time here. He goes, yeah, I never seen him here before. He goes, but you said something. What did you say? He called me on it.
Yeah.
So I'm shocked because I'm thinking, there's no way.
Yeah.
There's no way. And he said this, I don't know who you've been hanging around with. He said, but the devil has you deceived.
Ooh.
That's what he said. He said, you're a good man. He said, come up here. I went up there. I looked at my friend and I was like, do you really? And he goes, go. So I went up there and he started telling me things one-on-one that things that my mother had told me.
Oh, wow.
That was probably I won't say the rest, but that was probably the only time somebody outside, if you will, of the church that has ever said those things. So now I hear people that are not in the church kind of say the same things, and I see somebody in the church almost with that same ability, for lack of a better word. So
absolutely,
it shocked me because when I was saying these words,
that's amazing though.
Yeah, and he stopped and he looked at me like he saw where it was coming from.
Yes, for sure.
So that was a freaky tale.
Oh, it's very freaky.
So other than that, back to the demonic. As far as people like, I heard Marilyn Manson. I just want to touch on one thing about him. I know he looks at Anton LaVey like this great philosopher, and as a matter of fact, you can actually even Google Marilyn Manson's, I guess, satanic card, whether it's real or not. I don't know why you would need a card.
Oh, but, yeah. For the Church of Satan. Yes. Apparently you need one.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay, well, you guys can Google it. I guess that is true. But Anton LaVey started up his own church in San Francisco. I believe it was 1967 when he started it. But do you believe that it's possible? You know how people have killed other people or committed suicide, and then people blame it on the artist or the music that they listen to?
Yes.
What is your take on that? Is it possible? Is it possible that within that music there is something negative?
Well, yes, because depending on like the hertz that it's emitting at, I know like 432 hertz is apparently the vibration of love. So like if you go on YouTube, type in 432 hertz meditation music, it's really good for you. And so with music, there's even a study too of water and how frozen water, if it's played by harp music, and the frozen molecules freezes into something beautiful, these water molecules. And if loud music saying I hate you, death, destruction, blah, they're all the water molecules, the way they froze are like very static and it's just all over the place. So I kind of see that influencing like humans, like, right, since we're all just little bits of energy floating around. I don't think it's to solely blame it on an artist. That'd be silly. But what we listen to, what we eat, what we're around, what we're reading, what we're thinking about influence us probably more than we think. So
yeah. You ever read Anton LaVey's book?
I did. I think when I thought I was a Satanist when I was like 17.
Well, I'm not trying to make, but how could you think you were a Satanist? I mean, I'm just being sarcastic.
Well, for sure. I was just going through a time where everything I was experiencing seemed to resonate with Anton LaVey. And I was like, oh, is this my path?
Yeah.
And I started, dabbling, and eventually I knew it wasn't, but but I have read it before.
Okay. Yeah. Is it interesting? I don't plan to ever read it, but
I guess it's interesting.
Okay.
Yeah. It's not amazing. I think there's better books out there about Satan, so interesting books.
Now, one thing I know we both have in common, and we brought it up, I'm a huge Doors fan. You're a Doors fan.
Yes.
And I got to meet Ray Manzarek, and I got to meet one of the guys, I won't say his name, but he's no longer alive, that was at one point managed them, and he's the one that introduced me to Ray Manzarek. So I got to sit down and I shared with you that I got to ask him at least 2 questions.
Yes.
Okay. And now he passed on. Do you believe that Jim Morrison at all was involved in the occult?
Yes, I believe he even had abilities of his own.
Really?
So that story he shares often about Dawn's Highway, where when he was a younger boy, he was driving through New Mexico, where they saw the band of dead Indian workers scattered on Dawn's Highway. Dead Indians bleeding. That's like one of the poems I'm trying to think of. And how he believes that one of the souls of the dead Indians entered the fragile eggshell mind of young Jim Morrison And that's where a lot of his, like, you know, on stage he'd do those weird shamanic dances and dance like a frenzy. Like, where did that come from? Was it the drinking, or was it something more?
Yeah.
I don't think there's outward evidence that he was necessarily doing like any practices, like how we were just saying, like how Jimmy Page did. He totally did some Aleister Crowley practices, but I think Jim Morrison was a gifted human, a gifted poet, and a shaman in his own way. And I definitely feel like he had some past lives doing things like that, with doing magic.
Okay.
And very old soul, out of this world.
I read a lot of the biographies that people wrote. Many of them are pretty much almost exactly the same. So you're pretty much reading the same thing, just certain notes here and there.
Yes, for sure.
I know in the movie, this, I guess, he married a witch.
Yes, right.
You know, or
Pamela, or no?
No, it wasn't Pam. It was the other
one
one
before.
Yeah,
Okay.
I guess she was the reporter.
Okay. Yes,
And then
yes.
in the movie, they show them drinking each other's blood or whatnot like that. That's why I asked, because on some of the books, I didn't read that. On some, I did. And then I saw it in the movie. So I was just wondering if that was a part of the occult.
I've heard he did that too, and that is a ritual, you know, drinking your lover's blood. I've done it with my current lover, so it's and it's the best. But I mean, I wonder what it did too. I don't think he talked about it that much often,
No, not at all. That's why I was kind of like,
I feel like he might have done it just to be in the moment, because he was also a very spontaneous person.
Yeah.
Crazy, but spontaneous. But like cool crazy, fascinating.
Yeah.
I think he might have been really, I think he was smarter than most people thought, like super intelligent.
Yeah, I believe that.
Yeah.
Yes, I mean, he went to UCLA.
Yeah, for sure, for film or something. Yeah.
Yeah, so yeah, you have to be smart just to get in there.
Yeah.
So
absolutely.
At this time, unless there's something that we didn't cover or you want to bring up, was there another story, another experience, anything you want to share, you can share, or we can dive into the letters.
We can do the letters. I'm down for that.
Okay. Then after, if something pops into your mind that,
sure.
We'll go through it. Okay, I'm going to read this one here, and I'm glad it's a little bit more light. This person is from Little Cartoon, okay, and this is one of your emails. And it said, I had to sleep in my car, so I found a deserted spot when I woke up. Okay, there's no commas. So I find a deserted spot when I woke up because of a sudden heat. Okay, please help me out, guys, here when you guys write these emails, please. I put my seat up and turned on my car to my peripheral. He spelled it wrong.
Peripheral.
Yes. I noticed somebody sitting behind me. So I guess he's in his car. He noticed somebody's behind him. Almost turned fully around when it whispered in my ear, you see that car that just passed by? Go. Get him. He's been spying on you. So he's hearing this voice. Something in the backseat is telling him to go. I sped off after the car. Then when I realized that I was doing a slowly began to turn around to see who it was. No. This car that just passed by on your side. I immediately made a U-turn in the middle of the road and began chasing the next car. The same thing happened over and over throughout the whole entire night, all the way till 7 a.m. When I ran out of gas, when I ran out of gas, the same thing happened over and over throughout the whole entire night, all the way. He wrote it again. Please forgive me, guys, but I'm trying to read this, okay? From a full tank to being on E. Whatever it was, it didn't want me seeing its face. Had a smoky outline, had greenish, grayish skin, and its presence was just scorching hot. Any idea what this could have been, and why did it have me pursuing cars and not let me entirely see his face? W. Benitez II, a Little Cartoon. So let me read the description again. It says, whatever it was, it didn't want me seeing its face. Had a smoky outline, had greenish, grayish skin, and its presence was just scorching hot. Any idea what this could have been, and why did it have me pursuing cars and not let me entirely see his face? So obviously he gave a description, so he's seen whatever he saw, but he didn't see the face and actually even heard the voice.
So it made him just kind of go in circles?
Yeah, it just made it chasing cars.
Seems like a trickster? That's the first thing that comes to my head.
Yeah, I have no idea what that is. Sometimes I like to elaborate and like to share what I think it was, but yeah, I don't know. Once again, smoky outline. When I say smoky, I'm thinking more like a silhouette.
Yeah.
I tell you, I see that. And then it says...
But then the skin.
Yeah, the greenish gray skin. That's almost like a zombie-looking color.
Yeah, so like maybe someone who died in the area.
Maybe.
But why would he be...
And his presence was scorching hot, so obviously he felt heat.
Okay.
So he felt, he saw, and he heard, but he didn't know, and this thing spoke. But quite an experience.
Yeah.
You know, wow. Okay, you want to
Sure,
read one of
yeah,
yours?
let's do it. Okay, so we got this one here. Good afternoon, Tony. This is from Linda. And Linda is in Northern California, specifically the Bay Area. She says that, my husband and I are both avid listeners and fans of the show. I've learned so much, and being a Chicana, it's great to have a show where you can relate to others about topics that our parents countlessly helped us grow up with. There is a comment that I had where you had mentioned twice in the podcast about the number of books in the Bible of 66. Mm-hmm. I am a Catholic, and I have been studying about the Bible, and have learned that as Catholics there are 26 books in the Old Testament and 47 in the New, for a total of 73 books. I have also learned that other Christian denominations have disputed the use of books, some saying more or less. Would you be able to mention in the show which Bible you have been using to study? Lastly, thank you for being thorough on explaining things and always asking us to research topics. Thanks, and nothing but the best for your show.
Okay, I mentioned a couple of times when I've studied ancient history, that's how I eventually got into the Bible.
Okay.
I began to study Assyria, Egypt, Babylon, Persia, Greece, Rome, Israel. I think I know more about ancient history than I actually know about Mexico or even the U.S.
Nice.
And I was taught this by a college professor. I didn't even know he was a professor, and I met him by accident. How earlier we talked about things that happened to me by accident. And one day he gave me a Bible, and I'm going to mention it. It's a 1611 King James Bible.
Okay.
Where you get the these, thous, and the nays. I had a really hard time reading in Old English. Eventually, I ended up buying a new translation of the King James called the New King James. That's what it's called, the New King James. So the reason why, and I know what she's referring to, she's referring to what the Catholics would call, or not just Catholic, but just in general, the Apocrypha. Okay. Those are the books that were left out of the Bible. So the King James has 66 books. The Apocrypha, it's Tobit, Wisdom, and a couple of other books.
Have the 73, right?
Right.
Okay.
And the reason why King James never included them in his translation was simply this, because he believed, and most Bible scholars believe, that those were just historical books, not books inspired by prophets or apostles that actually wrote them. A prophet or an apostle or a disciple in biblical times was somebody that heard from God directly and told them what to write, or they saw it and they wrote it, and it was inspired. They were inspired by God to do so. King James, pretty much, and a lot of scholars believe that even though that First and Second Maccabees and all these other books were accurate history, they just didn't want to include it because they didn't think that it should be canonized with all 66 books that they believe were inspired by God. Now, I don't discourage anybody from reading history. You can own those and read them.
Yeah, of course.
But to go a step further, this is why I didn't include it in the King James translation of the Bible. Not one prophet or not one apostle in the 66 books ever quoted or referenced the Apocrypha. So they said it must not be inspired. And I can continue to go on and on. Now,
I'm sure you could, yeah.
I have the Apocrypha and I've read it.
That's cool.
And I have the 66 books. So I encourage everybody to read it. I'm not going to say don't read it, but I read the 1611 King James Bible and now the new translation, the New King James, but I also read many translations, whether it's Amplified, the New American Standard. I stay away from two translations, was the New International and the Message Bible. And email me and I'll explain why. So.
Cool. Have you heard of the Book of Enoch?
Of course.
Okay, cool.
Of course. Now,
Nice.
It's
a different
yes.
avenue, but yes.
Now, Enoch was mentioned not only in the Old Testament, but in the New Testament.
Correct. Yes.
Okay. In the book of Genesis, he said he walked with God and then he was no more.
Yes, and then he ascended, right?
Yeah, he ascended.
Yeah.
Now you have it in the, I want to say it's either the book of James or Jude that they quote from the book of Enoch.
Right.
Here's the thing. In 1967, when the shepherd boy found all the Dead Sea Scrolls, I mean, every book of the Old Testament except Esther was found in those scrolls. The entire scroll of Isaiah that predicted the coming Messiah is intact. And you can see it in the Jerusalem Institute in Israel. It's intact. So if you understand Hebrew and you take your King James Bible, you could read it word for word.
Wow.
Word for word. Okay. I understood a little bit of Hebrew. I read a little bit of Hebrew. I think a little bit more Hebrew than I do Greek, But
well, look at you.
Look, I never graduated middle school. I never graduated high school. But I educated myself.
Absolutely.
So I encourage everyone to educate themselves. So, but it's all there. Now, the Book of Enoch. I have the Book of Enoch actually here in my library.
Do you really?
Yes.
That's what I'm missing. I need to get a good one.
The reason why I'm skeptical about it is because they've never found any type of Dead Sea Scroll fragment on that book to confirm that what it's saying
for sure. Got it.
is true. So there. Let me read this letter.
Yeah.
And it says, my name is Carlos, aka C26. I was business partners at one point in time with Capone from Latino Jam Records. He had been taking care of some business in Dallas-Fort Worth area, and it got pretty late, so I told Capone to just crash at my crib and drive home in the morning since he lived 2 hours away going towards Austin. My daughter was my only child at that time, and she was only 3 or 4. That night, she slept with me and my wife in our room, and Capone slept on an air mattress in my daughter's playroom. The next morning, he was saying how tired he was because the kids were making too much noise. I said, bro, what are you talking about? I only have my daughter, and she slept in my room. Then it dawned on him that there were no other kids in the house, but he swore he heard children running around laughing and playing all night. He had been in my house countless times, but after that, he refused to step foot in my house. This is just one of the many stories that have happened in my house. And this is Carlos Zamora, C26. And he put Catholic musician and public speaker. So thank you, Carlos Zamora, for that, this experience. I don't know if I can elaborate on that because all he heard was children playing and I guess laughing or making noises while he slept.
Yeah.
I think the only time I ever heard kids' noises when I watched that movie, The Blair Witch Project.
Right, for sure. Well, children's can either be a very positive thing because children are pure, or it can be trickster energies coming in the form of children. But hard to say what kind of situation that would be.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, would you like to read yours?
Yes, let's do it. So my name is Jasmine. I'm from Bakersfield, California. I wanted to share a story with you guys. In one of your stories, you mentioned white cloud-like shadows. Well, one night I was in my room folding clothes. My 2 daughters were asleep, and my husband shows up drunk and passes out on the couch. My house was really quiet, so I decided to turn on music. Music volume was low, but my house still felt really quiet. I started to scare myself, so I start calling out for my husband, and no answer. So I step out of the living room to the right side of the sofa was there. That's where my husband had passed out. So when I went to call him, I saw like 2 clouds over him, and as I gasped, they flew away towards the kitchen. I ran back to the room, scared as hell. Oh, they have no punctuation here either. I started yelling for him to get up and to come in. He wouldn't answer when I yelled for one of my daughters, and I heard one say, yeah, and I was like, come here. Shitty move, I know, but I was scared and they knew nothing. But so after I called her, she still didn't come. So I called my husband again, and nothing. Then we had a surround sound system in the living room, and it turned on, and it was just loud static noise, and it scared the crap out of me again. And at that point, I knew I had to go turn it off because my babies would wake up. So I ran there to turn it off. I kicked my husband until he woke up and checked my kids. None of them would wake up. I don't know how I fell asleep that night, but the next day I told everyone, and no one heard me or anything the whole night. I have so many stories from that little town I lived in. That was just one of the ones that scared me because I seen it on my husband. And his father died when he was 9 months old, and his grandfather before he was born. I believe the white clouds were them, and they wanted me to leave him alone and let him sleep. I hope you get the chance to read this.
Who was she again?
This is Jasmine from Bakersfield.
Jasmine from Bakersfield. Thank you for sharing that.
Thank you.
Anything you want to elaborate on that?
2 clouds. I mean, if she's already connecting to the dots to what she believes they would be, I would say go with that. Always trust your intuition. Usually our first thought is typically the correct one before we start to doubt ourselves. And as far as like the static thing, spirits can interfere with, electronics.
Really?
Yeah, for sure. Because it's a way they could, because if they can't manifest in front of you, like in an apparition, they will do whatever it takes they'll enter any type of frequency, whether it's like electronics or lights, sound, just to make sure that they're here. So if they influenced the sound system, and then she saw those clouds over her husband while they were sleeping, you put 2 and 2 together. If she believes they were the visiting spirits of some deceased loved ones, that would definitely be my first guess.
Yeah, because I've seen like the dark shadows, the dark silhouettes, but never white.
Yeah, never white. White's typically a more positive thing.
Okay.
But yeah, of course, when you start to see like dark apparitions or like shadow people.
Yeah. Okay, now tomorrow something different is going to happen. Tomorrow's Halloween.
Yeah, finally.
And we're going to be experiencing a blue moon, if I'm correct.
Yeah, blue moon.
Yeah, it's kind of weird because when I was younger, we would always say, yeah, it happens every blue moon.
For sure. Yeah, every blue moon this will happen. Yeah.
Right. Your favorite growing up holiday was Halloween, and so was mine.
Yeah.
What do you have planned for tomorrow?
I have no idea. I might hang out with just a friend or two. Keep it low and easy.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll probably just stay home, light a fire.
Okay.
Do wishy stuff.
Is tomorrow, because again, the outside looking in and totally ignorant of this, so I like to ask questions. Is it true that certain people do certain things on Halloween night?
Oh, 100%. So the veil between this world and the afterlife is really thin, especially from October 30th to, I would say, November 2nd. So Hallows Eve and All Saints Day, especially those 2 days. So the 31st and then November 2nd. The veil's thin. That's why, like in Dia de los Muertos, they have the tradition. They have that tradition so that their loved ones, the veil's so thin, your loved ones can cross over and communicate. That's why, altars are with all the loved ones are there,
right.
And you bring them like snacks and things to enjoy. And that's celebrated around the world too. I think in Haiti they have the Gay Day Festival, where it's something quite similar. So the reason why crazy things happen even on like full moons too is like it really affects like that weird hidden alchemy that humans have, that because we are affected by the stars so much more than what we know and believe in. So
okay.
and Halloween, the traditions of Halloween go way back too, and they were adopted recently, I would say probably in the early 1900s in America, where it started to become what we know of it today, like jack-o'-lanterns, dressing up.
Right. Okay.
It became more commercialized.
Okay. Well, you know what? Other than that, is there anything that I didn't ask you? Anything you didn't want to, that maybe you should have brought up you didn't before we head on out?
Not that I can think of. Just everyone should stay safe on Halloween, because that's when the crazies come out. All of them.
All of them.
All of them.
Okay, now let me ask you a question now. My last question.
Yes.
Okay. First time we met today, about 2 hours ago. Okay. We talked several times on the phone and pretty much on what we were going to be discussing. Okay. After sharing with you the things that I've seen and you were able to say, okay, yeah, I'm familiar with that, or I know what you're talking about. What is your reading, or did you get anything from me meeting me?
Yeah, I think, Tony, I do believe you have some gifts. If you decide to like tap into it more, you'll realize the situations that you've had in the past, it'll ring a bell, and maybe you'll realize that, oh, I could do something with these things.
Right. Well, I'll be honest with you, I have no intention, but...
Well, how about maybe the next time those things happen, just acknowledge it and, be proud of yourself.
I'll tell you why I don't, because, and I'm not afraid to admit it, I'm scared of it.
Oh, of course. I don't blame you. It's definitely scary.
Yeah, so, especially like when you, okay, I met you, shook your hand, I didn't get anything, but you know what? A nice, humble person.
Well, thank you.
So
that's fairly accurate.
So that's
yes.
Pretty much so. Okay. Other than that, I just want to thank you for coming and taking the time to sit down with us, the Freaky Tales podcast. You're greatly appreciated.
My pleasure.
Whatever we can do to help you, or I know your Instagram has been up.
Yes.
So, and once it's up on YouTube, because we're live right now, it'll go up maybe about a half an hour or so. On the description, your Instagram will be there too. So when people go see it and they want to know who you are, go in the description, hit the Instagram and follow you or whatever.
Yes.
And do you, to this day, still give readings and stuff?
Yes, absolutely. They can inquire through a DM on Instagram right now, and I hope in the near future I'll launch an Etsy shop where I'll have more of my spelled candles, oils, and things like that. So they can be a part of that journey too.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Erica Howell, thank you very much.
My pleasure. Thank you.
So once again, everyone, thank you for joining us tonight. Somebody asked me a question, well, actually several of you asked me a question on the DM today on Instagram on the Freaky Tales one. Somebody asked me, was this going to be my last one because Halloween is tomorrow? No, absolutely not. We're just going to keep it going to see how long it lasts. I know I started it up, I don't know, maybe a couple of months ago, simply because I like the paranormal. I like everything that we discuss. I think it's very interesting. And there's an audience out there for it. And I just felt that there were people out there that were lacking when they had, or when they talk about certain subjects like this, like we talked about,
yes.
They either make jokes about it or they make fun of it, or they don't take it serious. So I wanted to take situations and conversations like this serious. So we started up Freaky Tales podcast, and but we want to thank you for being a part of it. We want to thank you for emailing us, and sharing with us your stories. Next week, I have another special guest. You are not going to want to miss that one, but we're going to keep it going. I know it's going to be kind of weird doing Freaky Tales around Thanksgiving and around Christmas, but for me, Halloween's like year round. And
freaky things happen all year.
Yeah, year round. So once again, thank you very much. I want to thank my good friend John ELKINS. I want to thank Alex Cervantes, Cervantes Enterprise. So once again, expect the unexpected. Have a blessed night. You know what? And happy Halloween.
Happy Halloween.
We'll see you here next Friday.